Welcome back to another episode of the Young Guides Podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is...
I'm Kyle.
But first, a word from our partners.
First up, we want to talk about Heather's Choice. If you go to the Heather's Choice website and use our code TheYoungGuides15 at checkout, you can get yourself 15% off site-wide. So go check them out. We got packaroons for snacks. We got dinners. We got breakfasts. We got a bunch of new recipes coming out to you guys. So head on over to heatherschoice.com at checkout. Use our code TheYoungGuides15 and get you guys something for your next outdoor adventure.
Awesome. For our next partner, we have Lucky Bug Lures, home of the Bingo Bug, Zombie Max, Fusion Extreme, Lucky Plug, F-Bomb, and Pike Bomb. They take conventional lures and change them up a little bit, and it helps your fishing and your luck on the water. Go check them out. www.luckybuglures.com. Go get yours today.
All right. Up next, we have Northern Knits. Emily up here in Anchorage knits wool hats and distributes them through her social media platforms. You can find her on Facebook or on Instagram. Her Instagram account is northern._.knits. And you can see some of the hats that she has in stock and order from there, or you can kind of get an idea of what you want, message her, and you can set something up to have a specific pattern or color scheme that you want in your hat. Keaton and I both have one. Well, I actually have several. Keep you very warm. They're very fashionable. They look great. They feel great. You'll look awesome if you wear one. So check her out, Northern Knits.
Next up, we have a friend, Matt, at Alaska Rod Co. He just released a new lineup of rods for the 2022 season. They have a lineup of 8 freshwater spinning rods with actions and power for anglers chasing big, aggressive fish. With lengths ranging from 6 foot to 9 foot, there are plenty of options for various applications and style. In a world full of mass-produced rods, Alaska Rod Co. makes sure that rods and services provide what other brands cannot. Rods built and tested in Alaska.
Matt also is coming out with a new line of fly rods. Alaska Rod Co. fly rods are built for harsh environments while maintaining the utmost level of craftsmanship. Right now, Alaska Rod Co. is 9-foot fly rods ranging from 5 weights to 8 weights. 10-foot single-hand rods, switch, and spare rods will be available late winter or spring. There's enough rod companies out there trying to build the next lightest and flashy rod. Alaska Rod Co. is here to build you a rod you can pass down generations. Fishing means many things to many different people. Alaska Rod Co. is honored to build you the ultimate tool that connects you to that meaning.
If you want to learn a little bit more about Alaska Rod Company, go back and check our previous podcast. We asked him several questions about his rods, his warranties. He does a great job at explaining everything and covering everything about his company. Also, if you have questions, you can always DM him or DM us and we can get you going in the right direction. So, Alaska Rod Co.
Finally, we want to say thank you for listening to another episode of the Young Guides podcast. If you can, head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and a rating. It helps us know that we're doing this for the right reasons, and you guys are giving us some great feedback already. You can also head over to Spotify. They now have a rating feature on the podcast there. So if you could let us know how we're doing, that would be great. It also helps helps us spread the word through you. But makes us pop up on the feeds wherever you listen to podcasts a lot more if you give us a great rating and a great review. You can also head to our website and contact us through that form if there's anything that you think we should know about, if you want to be on our show, or if there's something that we need to work on. You can also find us on Instagram, and same thing, give us some feedback, drop us a message, and we will get back to you.
With Instagram, make sure to also check our story. We before we do our podcast on Thursdays, we always have an option for you guys to ask questions to the people coming on our podcast. And we post a lot of stuff that we like to get viewers and people following us involved. So if you want to head on over, give us a follow and start asking questions and join in on the fun on our Instagram page.
Without further ado, here's the episode.
Welcome back to another episode of the Young Guides Podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is...
I'm Kyle. And on today's episode, our guest is Mitchell Paisker. Mitchell is from Alaska. Well, we'll get into the story. He's not originally from Alaska, but he is in Anchorage right now. Mitch is like, if you were to look up trout bum in the dictionary, you'd probably see a picture of Mitch in there. He's one of the fishiest dudes I've had the privilege to meet. I've actually met Mitch in person. I think it was later in the year of 2021. Walked into Sportsman's, was going to buy some fly tying materials, and I came across Mitch working there, checking in, see if I need any help. And then we just kind of started talking fishing. And I think I was talking to him for like a half hour, 45 minutes, just about fishing in the area, and started following him on Instagram. And Mitch is a diehard. He'll drive down and fish when it's like -20 and it's like blowing through snow, and he's putting a lot of miles to go catch fish all over Alaska. So super cool dude, and figured we bring him on the podcast and learn a little more about him. So with that, welcome to the podcast.
Howdy, how are you guys doing?
Good.
How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good. Well, Mitch, let's get this rolling into this. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you got into fishing or fly fishing, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So born and raised in New Jersey, but like the west side of New Jersey, right? So like the Delaware River, not like Jersey Shore or city side that everybody thinks of. So I lived there for, all through high school. I moved to the state of Maine when I went to college. I went to the University of Maine in Orono, got a bachelor's in ecology and environmental science, concentrated in wetland ecosystems and forest ecosystems, got a minor in forestry. Well, I was super lucky to roll that into a master's. So I got a master's in ecology and environmental science as well. And like growing up, I'd always been a real big fisherman, whether that was like fishing for bass or trout in the streams and stuff like that. Coming from Jersey was a lot of bass, and like pickerel and sunfish and crappie. And in the state of Maine, moved on to more of the smallmouth game, kind of got introduced into that up there. My buddies and I started up the University of Maine Fishing Club my freshman year. So we all had a helping hand in that, and we rolled that for 4 years. It's still going now, and I've been out. I graduated college in undergrad in 2017, and it's like still a really big club on campus now. I've always like thought fly fishing looked cool. I never really got into it until I went to college, and just linked up with a bunch of really cool guys who, like, just like you said, like they were all trout bums, and that trout stank wore off on me. So and so I got into fly fishing, kind of almost got into fly tying first. I had a buddy who used to tie flies and like give me them in class, and he was like, "Yo, come over one night and like we'll tie and then we'll go out." So I still have it. It's like tore up because I used it, but it's I don't know if you guys heard of the pattern of a gray ghost. It's like super kind of like quintessential pattern. That was my first fly that I tied. I tied 2 of them. One of them just got beat to shit. The other one is still hanging on a little bit. But yeah, and then it just rolled into, I'd bring my fly rod out and I'd bring my spin rod out, and that spin rod quickly started finding itself on the bank more and more and more and more. And yeah, I'm pretty sure they've been dusty since 2015-ish, if not earlier than that. So I switched into the fly game pretty hard. Started planning trips solely around fly fishing. Every time I go somewhere, I'm looking, what rivers I'm near, what lakes I'm near, what fish I can catch. And yeah, I'm full on into the game. And then graduated masters. My masters came, and then was looking for jobs and all that stuff. A job in Alaska popped up, and came out here, and I worked for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game for the Threatened, Endangered, and Diversity Program. Worked on their project and was looking at a species of shorebird that was in critical concern. So we worked on that for half the summer, and then collared pika, which are best way to describe them, they are mountain hamsters. I'll just leave it easy as that. They're related to rabbits and stuff like that, but if you imagine the size of a hamster, kind of like a chinchilla with its tail cut off, kind of cross those two animals, and that's what you got. But like, it was very clear to me and my close friends and my family that I was moving to Alaska regardless of a job or not, because I was coming fishing. The fishing game in Alaska has always been like on my radar for huge rainbow trout, dolly varden. Like, love dolly vardens. Like, they are one of my favorite species to catch up here. And then the salmon game also was super fun. Probably definitely less into the salmon game as I am into like rainbows and dollies and like even like whitefish and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I've sunk many a paychecks into fly fishing, and many of hours of my life into there too. So
Awesome.
Heck yeah. When you were in New Jersey, you said you were on the west side. Were you like, you said the Delaware, were you like around the Delaware Water Gap area, or?
yeah, so I wasn't too far from the Del Water Gap. The town I lived in, I could actually like ride my bike across the Delaware River into Pennsylvania in like probably 20-25 minutes. So I was like right there on the border. As close as I was to like, so I grew up in kind of like a really sweet spot of some amazing fisheries, but I never fished them, right? Like, and I feel like talking to a lot of people, that kind of comes to the surface, is like, there's so many good areas that people grow up near or live near, but they never utilize them, right? So like the Delaware River, you got walleye, stripers, smallmouth, largemouth, you got, perch of all, you have so many species, you have shad runs. I never fished the Delaware. I mean, like, I might have throw some lures for like largemouth bass, but for the most part, I never fished it. When I was in Jersey, it was definitely more of a pond game, like lakes and ponds for me, than it was rivers. If I was doing anything in flowing water, it was like small backward streams with like a little ultralight rod. But then when I moved to Maine, it switched over to mostly rivers. And then the only time I'd be fishing lakes is when I was ice fishing. And then kind of since there, I'm just running rivers. I will fish lakes, but less often than I will for like rivers and stuff like that. So,
Gotcha. My my in-laws lived in Pennsylvania for a while, and they were kind of right in that area. So I gotta spend a couple weeks fly fishing in that part of Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
a couple years ago, and yeah, that's a cool piece of the country right there. It's very different from Alaska, but it's very very cool.
Yeah, and I mean, like, where I was at, like, I could have ran to like the Great Lake Tribs in like 4.5, 5 hours. I could have ran to like the Connecticut River or like the other rivers in like the New England area, like in only a couple hours. Again, I never did it. And I never did it until I was living in Maine. And I was like one weekend, I was like, I'm going fishing. And I drove 13 hours down to fish the Great Lake Tribs for like steelhead and browns. And like, then I drove back up and I was like, why didn't I ever do this when I was younger? Like, why didn't I ever do this when I was closer? And it's kind of like, a little bittersweet and also like comical of like, you're right there, but you don't realize it till you're gone. So.
For sure. And we've definitely had people on before that said the same thing, that once they get into fishing and they start to realize like what they had, and they didn't realize it until after they left and moved on.
Yeah, like I was listening to some podcast, some of your guys' podcasts, in the past couple of weeks, and I listened to Kate Sorensen's podcast, and I would like everything she said. I was like, "That's me. That's me. That's me. That makes sense." Like but it was kind of cool and funny to see like how similar such different people can be within the same sport. So
For sure. What was like your experience moving from your hometown to like Maine? Was the fishing better, or like how was your fishing experience in Maine? Because it's kind of like a flip to the other side. So I'm always curious, like what was Maine like fishing? Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
yeah, for sure. So like in Maine, or sorry, in Jersey, like I said, it was mostly largemouth bass. And if I was fishing for trout, they were stocked trout, right? And everybody has their opinion on stock trout versus native trout, whatever. We'll leave that for a later date. When I moved to Maine, it was, like I said, it was mostly smallmouth bass, and then it was native brook trout, native wild brook trout, native landlocked salmon. And so like it was cool to see the differences of like how to read a river or a lake differently for different species, right? Like there's crossovers of like how to read like weed lines and stuff like that, and how to read like points on a lake of like, structure is going to hold fish, like always will hold fish. But then to like read a river differently for like, oh, a smallmouth is going to be like hiding in the riffles behind the rocks, or like the brook trout are going to be in the riffles behind the rocks. And if there were to be a bass, they'd be in like a backwater slough. So it was cool to be able to take kind of knowledge from back home in Jersey and ship it up to Maine and be able to kind of combine it all to be able to read rivers and lakes and all that differently. I like fishing in Maine. My fishing knowledge like grew exponentially.
Yeah.
Like back in Jersey, I was always fishing like big hard plastics or like big soft plastics. And then when I went to Maine, switched over, and I was like, oh, like I'm gonna have to start using like different gear and different tackle to like target things differently. And then I got into like striper fishing up there in Maine, and like that was like one of the biggest reasons, other than friends, that I missed the state of Maine is striper fishing. Like, it like, I don't know if you guys have ever done it, but like striper fishing, and the striper fishing on the fly, no less.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta do it.
Were you chasing them on beaches, or were you doing it? I've heard they also can chase them. Don't quote me on this, but I heard that you can chase them in the rivers a little bit too, or like towards the estuaries.
Yeah. So I actually never fished them in salt water, right? I fished them on the school, like I fished them on the spawning runs up rivers.
Yeah.
So like all the alewife or like bunker or menhaden, kind of all that same shatty family. They would run up the rivers, and then the stripers during their spawning run, they'd come up and they'd follow them, right? So we were catching mostly schoolies, but you'd touch into like some like upper 20s, and then I mean there's one of my friend's buddies, he caught like a 42-inch bass right out of the river. So like it was wild. But the university itself is on an island in the Penobscot River, and the stripers run right up there and like right past the school, and then they hit a dam, and they kind of like they can pass further, but they like stack up there, and then like in that whole river chain, there's just like striper like crazy, right? I never really made it that much of a deal to go south and hit them on the beaches. I got a couple buddies from there who like they're touching 40-50 inch fish like regularly on the fly.
Yeah.
Wrecking 10 weights. And and like throwing like patterns that are like 10-12 inches long, right?
Yeah.
And it's like absolutely wild to see what they're pulling. And like, I mean, they're also using crab patterns and stuff like that. But yeah, the stripers in Maine and on the East Coast are like, if you ever get a chance, you have to do it. You really have to do it.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty
What was like your go-to fly when you were fishing stream? Like, did you do any topwater stuff, or did you mostly like stick to subsurface?
Yeah. I'd kind of switch it up depending on the day and depending on like, what they were feeding on. And there were some poppers I would tie. I would tie with like the double barrel popper heads that you could buy. I don't know what brand they are, but the big white popper heads, and then just a lot of blues and whites and flashy. And then for popper wise, and then there was some streamers I got to tying that were like hollow body deer hair feathers, or deer hair flies, sorry, that were chartreuse and white, and then like big white tails, chartreuse and white on the front of them, and like some flash running through them, like crystal flash, and like rainbow flash and all that. And there's a couple flies that I tied that were like, they were pretty damn good. And like I would tie up a lot because, like, one, if I lost any, like, I'd always have a spare. And then also like friends who I'd go with, I'd always toss them a fly because like I knew it would work. So I knew if they were like having a hard time catching a fish, I'd give it to them and I'd tell them to put it on. Quite a few people walking around that river who are fishing my flies, who I've like kind of like Kyle, like just kind of met them, got to talking, and they were like, hey, I was fishing and like couldn't catch anything, and I like would hand them a fly, and like not trying to be like cocky or anything like that. I'd just be like, hey, like this fly is going to catch you a fish, and I'd like give them a fly, and then they'd catch their first striper on the fly or anything like that. So
cool.
Like yeah, definitely like chartreuse and white, and then blue and white, and I did poppers, but a lot of it was streamer and subsurface game.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So and then I got stupid, and I would like try to touch into them on like a 5-weight and like snap rods and all that. So
That's always fun.
Yeah.
So before we move on to Alaska, Keaton, do you have any more questions for Mitch about East Coast stuff?
Oh, I gotta know what's your brook trout fishery like on the East Coast?
Oh, it's pretty incredible, man.
Is it like the Holy Grail over there? Do people like bask over the glory of brook trout?
Yeah, like brook trout are the target species out there for the vast majority of people, right? There's some like classic like historical streams that like you can read about in books that are like landlocked salmon and brook trout streams, and like people will come and like make like a mecca to Maine, especially in the fall, like right before spawning, and like you'll get these like super vibrant colored up fish.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a lot of like spot guarding when it comes to there. There's the classic rivers everybody goes to, and you can catch some like really, really, really beautiful fish. But then there's some hidden gems out there that, people touch into 5-6, probably even high 6-pound class of brook trout. And yeah, it's wild, but, and not to go on too much, but
yeah,
the East Coast game, I'm going to say this, and you'll probably catch flack from it. I'll catch flack from it. But again, I'm going to say it. The East Coast game is tactical, and coming to Alaska, from what I've learned, is like, it's a lot easier. And I'm going to explain that. Right.
Yeah.
So like take a decent fisherman from the East Coast, or I mean, even lower 48, put him in Alaska, he's going to catch a shit ton of fish. Take a decent fisher from Alaska, put him in the lower 48. I'm going to go on a limb here and say he's going to do like far less as good as he thinks he will. And like, there's a lot more matching the hatch and like smaller bugs and all that. And like, you're running smaller tippet on the East Coast. You're running like anywhere from 4 to 6x tippet, right? You're running size like 18, 20, 22 nymphs. Like you have to be tactical. You're hiding in shade like lines, and you're casting a lot more like targeted and all that. Whereas what I have found coming to Alaska, and granted, I've only been here 2 years, so like what I'm saying now might change for me in this coming year, like the next 2 years from now. It's a lot easier for me to catch fish here. Yeah. They're a lot less line shy. They're a lot less spooky. I've found in general, and again, there's areas where they are more spooky and you have to be more tactical and all that. But like the forage here, I found, and this might also just be because I've kind of grown a lot more as a fly fisherman. Like the forage here is a lot easier to match. Like you're always going to have some sort of rotten flesh in the system. You're always going to have some sort of like dull, burnt out, like apricot-y looking egg floating in the system, right? So like you can always catch a fish here, whereas I feel like, on the East Coast, it's just altogether a lot harder to touch and to fish. And I mean, I haven't been to this, I haven't fished like the West Coast or like the Midwest or anything like that. So like I'm talking strictly my experience in Maine versus my experience in Alaska so far.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I have thrown nymphs and stuff here and I have done really well on nymphs, but again, like I said, altogether it's like, if you're getting skunked, throw on an apricot bead and like 9 times out of 10, you're coming home with a bent rod. Right. So I don't know. That's kind of my quick comparison that I've found.
That's what, and I think Kyle could elaborate on it a little bit too, but like compared to like fishing, there's some rivers near me that are a little more personal size that you got to be a little more tactical on, because your shadow that's 6 foot, 7-8 feet goes out across the river. And I'm sure it's the same on the East Coast. Are you saying you're like fishing like in the East Coast? Are they small rivers, kind of like Michigan tribs, or would you say some bigger stuff? Like how would you compare it?
I would say the best comparison is, and I don't know how much you fished Alaska, Keaton, so you might not understand.
No,
but
I'm getting it from Kyle. Like he's explaining stuff with me.
So Kyle, you're definitely going to know exactly what I'm saying when I say this.
Yeah.
Parks, highway, streams, right? You're like Willow, Montana, like Goose, like Cushwitna. Those are kind of standard size for East Coast.
Okay.
So we're talking anywhere from like 20 feet to, I don't know, probably the widest I've fished was, I don't know, probably 80 to 100 feet wide, right? Like if I really tried and I had the back cast to do it, I could haul off and probably touch the other bank or come pretty close to touching the other bank.
Yeah.
And again, like there's anomalies, right? There's wider and, wider rivers and all that. But for the most part, I would say that the rivers up here, like the Kenai, much bigger of a river than, you're touching into on the East Coast, or like that you would normally fish on the East Coast, or at least the rivers I would fish. The Russian River is like my optimal size of what I like to fish. Like the Russian River and Parks Highway streams would be the size streams that I would fish in Maine, or that I would like to fish in Maine and on the East Coast. So,
yeah. So what I'm kind of saying is it's like a little more, there's just a little more tact. Like you have to be a little more tactical when fishing, like you're saying, compared from what I've heard, and I've done like bottom fishing in Alaska and stuff, but I've never really got to touch, I kind of have a similar background as you. Like I got into fly fishing from my friends when I was at college.
Okay.
But, like you got to be more tactical here compared to like up there. From what I've heard, is it's like you're saying, you're just slapping some meat in front. Maybe the fish down here compared to up there is that melt season and maybe more opportunistic than like fish down here, right? Like fish can be a little more picky in the lower 48 because they have a longer season to be more picky and put that weight on.
Precisely. Precisely. Like up here, it's like when it's on, and you better eat as much as you can, or you're done for. Whereas like exactly like you're saying, like just like the foraging season that they have on the East Coast or down south, whatever, is just that much longer.
Yeah.
And so and like the open water and like active feeding season, and like yeah, they're feeding all year long and all that, but like the active feeding season where they're like packing on the pounds, like is just that much shorter. And it's that much more of like a race to like the top for the fish up here, I think, at least. So
and Kyle probably could elaborate a little more on it since he's got a taste of both like the what the tactical fishability of like the Yakima compared to like what he's fishing up in Alaska.
Oh, 100%. I mean, back home, we're fishing 3 nymphs on like 5X, and you're fishing like a stonefly, and then like a pheasant tail, and then like a size 18 like WD-40, right? So you're fishing like 3 bugs, and you're changing depths to figure out where they're at. You're changing colors, you're changing patterns. Like sometimes during the day, throughout the day to day, week to week, you're kind of playing this game like, where are they going to eat? What are they going to eat? And then you come up here and like, oh, they only eat streamers and beads and flesh. So it takes a lot of that guessing game out, because like you said, they have to eat when there's no freaking ice on the river, right?
Yeah.
They have such a short season. They have to put on the pounds now before it freezes again and they can't eat, or they eat a lot less.
Yeah, and like that's a really good point you brought up. Like East Coast, I'm throwing trip rigs all day long, right? But just like you said, I'm throwing a stoner, like I'm throwing like a golden retriever tailed off to a mayfly, tailed off to like another nymph, right? Like a zebra midge or something, right? Whereas up here, it's like that's one aspect of Alaska that like has reluctantly made me a better fisher, is like you can only fish one hook in in the majority of streams, in the majority of areas. You can fish 2 hooks in some areas, whatever, but like fishing one nymph at a time, like it kind of makes you have to look at where you're casting that much more, and how you're fishing it that much more. So like in that aspect, it has made me a better fisher, because I'm like, oh, this nymph isn't working, so I got to like try to switch off to this nymph. Whereas, you could put on 3 nymphs that were like similar enough, but like different enough in color to where you're like, all right, this burnt orange keeps getting smacked. I'm going to change to burnt orange, where like you can present them 3 options in one drift on the East Coast. You can just present them with one option up here. So,
yeah. And for guiding, it's like, and back home, you're fishing a person on the front, person on the back. Each person has 3 flies. That's 6 hooks in the water, 6 different patterns. Whereas up here, guy in the front, or guy or gal in the front, guy or gal in the back, that's 2 hook. That's 2 flies. Yeah. So you've already tripled your odds by having that many more hooks. And like you said, it makes you a lot. I think it makes you a lot better. Makes you a lot more. I wouldn't say better. It makes you a lot more selective. I guess it adds to your, like what your like we put in your toolkit, right? Like that's your knowledge that you're gaining, because you can't fall back on those other 2 flies per rig.
Yeah. And in doing that, like I said earlier, like it's made me get and perfect some confidence patterns, right? So like there's some patterns that, by knowing that I had to keep switching nymphs or switching patterns, right? There's some in my box that like I'll put it on and I won't ever switch off of it, because I know like nothing else is going to beat it that day.
Yeah.
So,
man, you can almost like block. I don't want to block it, actually. I was going to say you can almost put like lower 48 versus like fishing up in Alaska, but I'm sure there's like challenges of their own all across the United States, so I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But and like the moral of the story here is like each fishery that you fish, you're getting a different skill set and a different aspect of the fishery, which makes you a better fisherman when you go and fish. You're going back to your East Coast, you're going to fish somewhere else that you've never fished before. Like you're like, oh, I have this East Coast, this like tactical brook trout stream. And then I also have, this meat slap in Alaska river that I can throw on my resume too. So, I want to loop back one more time. Do you think that the brook trout streams in the East Coast are? Do you think people have a more draw to them because of the like the history factor of it, or do you think people are going out to actually do like the fishing? Because like the stories I've heard is like a lot of people, they go to do their brook trout fishing because they want to just catch a brook trout in the East Coast because it's kind of that staple. But I haven't heard of like people catching big fish. It's like the hand, they get their colorful fish as long as their hand on their 3-weight and they put it back. I'm not dissing on the East Coast. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I feel like, as of anything, right, everybody does it for their own reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, yeah, finding that picturesque, like, yeah, I mean, like you said, even if it's a 6-inch long trout, like some of my most beautiful brook trout have been sub 10 inches, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm fishing trickle streams that are no wider than 10 feet wide, but I'm pulling the stud of a pool out, and that fish is like, 6-8 inches long.
Yeah.
Like the most beautiful fish. I think a lot of people do make that trip to Maine to fish for brook trout. There are definitely rivers where it's like they've been in the books for years, like Grand Lake Stream. If you type in like trout or salmon fishing in Maine, you're going to get like the West Branch of the Penobscot, the Kennebec River, maybe the Mag, and you're going to get Grand Lake Stream. Grand Lake Stream will never not make that list. And people definitely go there for not only the fishing, but the experience, right? Like, and I know like Todd Rosenbauer, he went to Maine and he did a whole special on Grand Lake Stream. And then he went to some lakes up north and did all that stuff. And like, people will definitely not only chase the fish, but kind of chase the, like, look where I'm fishing, right? Like, just like people go out to Pulaski, right? To New York and fish the Salmon River. And like, they're going out to fish the Salmon River, not necessarily catch, but to fish the Salmon River.
Mm-hmm.
Like the driftless region in, I think, was that Wisconsin or Michigan or that Great Lakes region, like that driftless region, like that's what the books have been written about. Or like the big rivers down in like Montana and Idaho and all that. It's like people go out just to fish the rivers, right? Like they make the trip not to catch the fish, but to be in those, but to say, I put these wading boots in that water, I fished that river. So circling back, yes to both answers, right? So
and I just want to, I want to say too, it's like I've had some of my most memorable fishing days catching smaller fish in a small stream in Montana or in Washington. Like, I'm not dissing on this little trout, but I'm just saying, like, I was just genuinely curious about it. So
no, absolutely. Like, everybody always wants to catch a big fish. Everybody always wants to catch a wall hanger.
Oh,
absolutely, right? But like, dude, some of my best memories in the state of Maine were on rivers that were, all of 20 feet wide, and all I was doing was catching like little, like what normal people would call a dink, right?
Yeah.
But like in Maine, a legal keeper size brook trout is only 6 inches, right? Which is kind of weird that like a legal fish is 6 inches long.
Yeah.
And like you're allowed like 5 of them or whatever, depending on the system. But like I would go and I would catch like legal fish, but like no fish that are worth keeping. And like those would be my favorite days, because you're just like, you're having a blast, and like, they're hitting like, caddis on top of the water, or like you're drifting like soft tackles, and like you see like, kind of just like grayling, just like, blowing up the water and like all that. And I don't know, like, yeah, big fish are fun, but like, it'd be ill-minded if I didn't give my respects to all the small fish that I cut my teeth on, getting those big fish. And like social media, that's all you ever see, right? And like I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but like social media, and like I'm victim of it as well. You always post your big fish, right? And I don't think that quite gives credit to, like, yeah, we put our time in to catch those big fish, but like what about all the stepping stones that got us there, right? So I think a lot more respect has to be given to small fish as well, because like some of the most beautiful fish I caught were small fish. You know, the prettiest colors and like the most pristine fins and all that, where you catch a lot of bigger fish and like all you see is like the maxillaries are ripped or like the bottom jaws like half cranked and like and all that. So like some of the most beautiful fish are the smaller fish, just by nature of they haven't been handled yet, and they are that much more wild because you're one of the few that have touched on that at that point, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think people, if you're out there chasing those big fish all the time, you're losing that appreciation and why you should be out there, right? You're losing that reason to go out fly fishing. So
yeah, it's like, another 16-inch trout. Like, what is this? It's like, nah, like,
oh, man, shake it off to get that thing off there.
Yeah,
it's like, what?
Yeah, but every fish has a purpose, and every fish, has a meaning. So
last thing, and then then we'll get moving. But I just want to say, if I can get my rod bent on a 3-weight for 3 hours straight compared to like going out and fishing one large fish, I want more. I'd rather be doing more action than like swinging a giant streamer for 4 hours to get one grab. So
yeah, absolutely. It's like those huge big grabs, like you're saying, are like super fun, and like fighting this big fish. It's like, you might be out there for 10 hours, but like at the end of the day, you hook one fish and, let's just make a round number. You fought it for 5 minutes, right? It's like, yeah, those 5 minutes are like exhilarating. That fish will hold a spot in your memory. But like you said, hitting fish on a 3-weight, like even if they're like, I went up north for work and I was on some streams near the Tangle Lakes region, and I hit like 200 fish in 3 nights, right? Mm-hmm. On a 3-weight, like I hit 200 grayling in 3 nights. Wow. That some of the best fishing I'll ever have. Nothing was huge, but like just amazing, just an amazing experience. And I don't think I would have traded that for even a fifth of that in large fish. So
yeah. No, this is
yeah. Let's we can. What was that, Keaton?
I said this is good stuff. Well, let's get rolling too.
No, I think this is a great conversation. Like, I know we originally talked about like having this plan, but like this the stuff that the knowledge that we're sharing here, I think this is super great stuff, right? Like we get on some of these podcasts and we start vibing and we just start talking, and it's like everybody here, like we all know what we're talking about. Like it's a super fun, super cool, like in-depth conversation. And these are the ones that we like to bring to our listeners, because these are the ones like people that want to hear, right? Like this is the super in-depth stuff. And so I'm enjoying the hell out of this.
Yeah. me and Mitch are just like going back and forth. I'm asking him historian questions, and Kyle's there. And I'm like, sorry, Kyle, I know you're about to talk.
No, it's all good. But
that's the problem is I can run my mouth like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like, do we want to set up like a 24-hour like episode? Because like I'm down for it, but
heck yeah.
2-part episode, 4 hours a piece.
Exactly. Well, now we've talked a lot of great stuff about lower 48 fishing, comparing a little bit to Alaska, but talk to us a little bit about when you got up here, right? You got up here to work. Did you have a lot of time to fish when you worked? Were you spend a lot of time outside? Were you in an office? What did that whole transition look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I got up here and unfortunately I moved up here like right at peak COVID, right? And I'll save that whole topic for off air. But I moved up here and I was quarantined for 14 days. So I sat in an Airbnb for 14 days, and that was 14 days of me putting research in, right? Of me looking at all the forums, looking at all the sites, watching all the YouTube videos of where people are fishing in Alaska and all that. And eventually, like when I got out, I rolled into starting to work. And my days were like pretty much, I had to be at the site at either 6:30 or 7 in the morning. and we were doing bird work. So like the majority of the birds were active in the morning, and then they die off at the end of the, like towards like, the like 12 to 2 o'clock time. So I would put in like an 8 hour day, 9 hour day. And so I'd be from like 7 to like 3, right? And then I would have, when we had that, peak light, I had from 3:30 till 12 at night, right? To do whatever I wanted. Um, I was put up in state housing with my other crewmate. And then since I flew here, um, I was very graciously given the opportunity to use a state vehicle. And I don't think they realized how many miles I'd put on that state vehicle. Where there's a lot of times where I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm running up north, and I'd run up north at like 8 at night, right? And I'd fish for a couple hours, and I'd come home, sleep for even less, and then roll into work the next day. So yeah, my schedule gave me a lot of free time. And then just the nature of the work that we were doing, not that it was unsafe, but just the animals wouldn't be present if it rained, or like, if it was calling for rain, or like there was super heavy winds. I couldn't do work, right? Like the crew couldn't do work, or couldn't do the amount of work that we like typically would, right? So if it was raining, we'd have a weather day. It's like, cool, fish are always wet, doesn't matter, right? So so I would just pack up and I'd go fishing, right?
Yeah.
So like I was very, very lucky with the amount of time that I had. So that was like end of May till the end of June was that bird work. And then we had 2 weeks off. And then mid-July, we rolled into the Pika project. The Pika project had less free time, but we were put up in housing up at Hatcher Pass cabins. And we'd drive up to Hatcher Pass every day, do a bunch of work up there, drive home. And while I was there, I was like, cool, I'm that much closer to the Parks Highway streams. And I definitely cut my teeth on the Parks Highway streams in Alaska. I found some really good streams and have some really good memories on some of those streams. And so we did like 2 or 3 weeks in Hatcher Pass. Then we did a 2-week trip to Denali, where we're up near the Tangle Lakes region. Did a bunch of grayling fishing up there. I ended up fishing from shore on the Tangle Lakes, catching lake trout there, which was super cool, catching lake trout from shore on the fly. And then came back home for a weekend or a couple days, and then we got flown out to another field site, then flown back in, and then finished up the summer at Hatcher Pass. So in Hatcher Pass, it was more of like a 9 to 5. So I had less free time, but I still had plenty of free time. And then eventually when I got all my stuff out here that October, I ended up flying home and driving back. So I missed all of September, right? Which is like known to be some of the best fishing up here because of all the flesh and all the beads or all the eggs in the system. So I missed September of 2020. Came back and still had a good October, still a good end of the year. And then this past year, I was guiding in September. So I missed fishing in September again. So this year, knock on wood, all I got to do is go home for a family wedding for a 1 week in September, but I'm hopefully going to have the rest of September this year, which is like, I'm pretty bummed I missed the last 2 Septembers, to be completely honest. Like, I've had good years, don't get me wrong by any means, but like, I'm bummed I missed September. So
100%. Well, don't you just wish people just freaking get married between like November and like February?
Yeah. I'll call my brother up right now and be like, hey, this isn't going to work for my fishing schedule. That's more important, right?
I've had like a wedding, including my own, pretty much every year since like 2019, sometime in the fishing season. It's like, people gotta stop inviting me to these weddings when I'm supposed to be fishing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you should have known that yourself to plan it at not peak fishing season, though.
This is true. That was kind of my own. That was,
That's on you at that point.
that was on me. But everybody else.
It's like weddings are an indoor event anyways. So if it's like raining, when it's raining and stuff, like just get a big ballroom and have your wedding there and keep everyone inside. And then when the summer comes, don't make people come and sweat in a black tuxedo in 90-degree weather. Right?
Yeah.
This is coming from your groomsmen. Don't make them do that.
I mean, like by all means, I'm excited to go back. Like, I'm stoked to see my family and for my brother to get there. But I'm also bringing my fly rod with me. Like, no doubt about it. I'm bringing my fishing gear. Like, at this point in my life and like how far down the rabbit hole of trout fishing and like fly fishing I don't travel without gear. Like,
yeah,
I have a backpack, and half of that backpack is my waders, my boots, and flies, and then I'm carrying a rod tube everywhere I go. I'm not traveling without gear because I don't care if it's a half a day or a day or whatever. I'm getting in the water wherever I go. And like, I don't care about having to pay for a fishing license. Like, my dad's like, oh, like, you're going to pay for a fishing license for one day? It's like, yeah, because that's going to go to help, the environment and to help, something that I'm super invested in. Like, cool. I spent $40 on a day license. That's only going to help the fishery more. That's only going to like prolong what I'm here to do. So,
yeah.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I like that mindset. You never know. You might come across a gem that, like I went to visit family in Boise, and it's like, why didn't I bring my fly rod? The Boise River goes right through town. I could have been fishing the Boise River in 10 minutes. Like, why didn't I bring my rod? It's like, it's a no-brainer. I should have brought it. And like you said, every time I go somewhere, I'm going to have that rod.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I mean, kind of what we touched on earlier, it's like, in getting into the fly game, like, I research everywhere I go before I go there. Right. And I had all of 15 minutes from my house, a fly fishing only catch and release river that is known for like some super, super, super good trout fishing in the state of New Jersey. 15 minutes from my house. Go ahead. Guess how many times I fished it when I lived there?
0.
Precisely. Never touched my foot in that water. And then like went home after I got into the fly game and like started catching these beautiful trout and like having a grand time there. And it's like, yeah, like
that's like, I grew up like, just fishing out like my fishing season at our cabin, or like you just around town. I'd go to lakes and just throw like some power bait out for trout, and I'd catch a few and like keep a couple, and you'd go and experiment and like barbecue them with something on them and eat them. And then I started getting into fly fishing and conservation. And then I was sitting there, a couple months later, I'm like, man, I got all this water around me here in Western Washington that I've never gone to. And you start looking it up and it's like, oh, this has a great trout fishery, or, oh, this has bass in it, and this has a smallmouth, fishery, and this has this and this and this. Next thing you know, you're like, man, I thought my fishery options for fly fishing was an hour, it's only about this big, and I have to drive an hour and a half and I can go fly fish. And then once you start looking into it, you're like, oh man, I can do this, and this, and like a 10-minute walk from my house, or I can go up here and I can go bass fishing.
Exactly.
So you're saying it's crazy, and I don't think you realize it until you truly get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. But
oh, heck yeah. So we were talking about, you were doing your Pica studies, right? And you were fishing the Parks Highway. You didn't have as much time. What did that look like then? Like you're cutting your teeth on those Parks Highway streams.
Yeah. So like, definitely like one of the main things. So I'll say this: we talked about differences between East Coast or lower 48 streams versus Alaska streams. I'll say this: the biggest difference that I've come across is the fact that you have to be worried about bears. Man, like like the Parks Highway stream, like some of the like most warnings that I got was like, don't go to Montana without a gun. Don't go to Willow without a gun. Oh, if you go to this stream, I'm not going to name it. If you go to this stream without a gun, like you're done for. And like, would I ever even like cross my mind to bring protection on me anywhere else I've ever fished? Absolutely not. So like the majority of these trips were always solo trips. I got linked up with a buddy who he had a drift boat, or a raft. So he and I would go fishing quite a bit up on Willow when I was doing the pika studies. But he like when I would go there, I'd go alone. So like the difference would be I was always watching over my back. And like I moved up here, I got a pistol for protection. So I was carrying that, but it was a lot of fun to be out there and be by myself. And like, yeah, you can always research water, right? You can always research water, till you fall asleep and till you can't take it anymore. And then once you hit the water, everything, like, it doesn't matter how much you did your research on, like, you have to still experience it fishing for yourself. So putting in all the river miles on the Parks Highway stream for me was like probably one of the best experiences, because I was by myself. And, not only just for the fishing aspect, just for like, the whole, like, just like being in your own head and like being alone and all that, just experiencing nature in general. Cause like, fishing's fun and all, but like, I'm also in it for the scenery. I'm in it for the nature. I'm in it for, just the experience of the outdoors. So like, that was super awesome. And I was stoked on that. One of my first trips was I was on Willow and I was fishing, and this moose popped out like right across the river from me, and it was like this big bull moose, and I was like that's awesome, but like I'm a go, like I'm not gonna like tussle with this thing. So it was a lot of fun for me to cut my teeth on those streams, because one, the fish are awesome, and like they're not necessarily huge, but it's also remarkable of how big of fish are in those small streams up here, just because they're chasing salmon, they're chasing that food store that's in the river. So yeah, it was like touching into really big fish in small waters, and then the nature aspect, and then also like, just the adrenaline factor of like always having to watch over your shoulder. It was like always like, yeah, it's a little like unsettling, but it's also pretty sick. So I mean, I had a ton of fun on the Parks Highway stream and cut my teeth there. So it was a lot of fun, and like I'll always go back there. Like I'll always look back on the Parks Highway streams fondly for cutting my teeth in Alaska, as well as just the fish aspect too. So
heck yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what you got done with that job? Did you go back and do that again the next year, or what's so? Sorry if you already said this. Did you move back home for that entire winter of your first in Alaska, or did you come back to Anchorage? Or
yeah, so I moved up. So I moved up in May of 2020, and May of 2020, and I worked that season. So to the end of August, beginning of September. Flew home in September, and I got my car, I got my trailer, and I met up with my girlfriend in New York, and then we caravanned out here. It took us like 10 days to get out here, 10, 11 days to get out here. Stopped in Idaho, and I fished, I forget what river it was. I think I fished the Snake River in Idaho, and one fish I've always wanted to catch, cutties, hooked 3 of them, lost them all at the net. So they don't count. Super, super unsettling. And like, I will always be upset at that. But, so we drove out here, and then we moved into our place in October of 2020. And then come May the next year, I did the same thing with the Pika crew, with the Yellow Lakes and Pika crew with Fish and Game on the TED program. And then that ended again in September. Then I guided, like I said, or I was meat packing for Big Alaska Outdoors. And then I should say in my off season, I work at Sportsman's Warehouse. I know, Kyle, you kind of mentioned that. I just work in the fishing and freight and receiving departments, and, kind of just all around. But this year I was lucky enough. I got not saying that I was unlucky to be on the Yellow Lakes crew and Pika crew. I was lucky to get a new position that is going to just be a different change of pace. Working on a salmon crew for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, doing coho and sockeye salmon habitat monitoring and spawning surveys. And they're in a lake that also has a pretty decent pike presence. So we're looking to see how the pike are interacting with not only just the salmon, but the rainbow trout that are in there too, but then how both the rainbow trout and the pike are interacting with the salmon that are in the lake. So
Crazy.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
That's going to be super interesting.
Yeah. So I know earlier I said I was more of a lakes and more of a streams and rivers guy. I'm going to be in a canoe every single day of the summer. So like, we'll see how that changes to my like fish and stillwater game. So it'll be fun. So I'm super stoked on that. So.
Yeah, you're gonna be able to fish a lot doing that one. You think you're gonna be like working, having a rod out at the same time as you're moving spot to spot?
I mean, like in my mind, that's how I envision it. But logistically, probably not. What I am gonna be able to do is like figure out where the fish are holding. So like, I'm gonna be able to like target fish a lot easier and a lot better, in theory. So I'll probably end up going like after work or like, staying late a little bit or something like that. And fishing off the clock. So, I'm not like time fraud or anything like that, so.
Like, you go punt, you go tag a fish. Yeah. Fish 132. Next thing you know, you're catching 132 on the end.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So. That's how you do it. Hey, I got a question for you. You kind of mentioned you're a meat packer. How did you get into that? What was like the biggest challenge of being a meat packer in Alaska? I mean, you got a bloody piece of meat on your back in, I'm guessing, bear country. How was that? You move a little quicker, a little more agile.
I don't know. I don't know how much quicker you can move when you're carrying like 140 pounds of meat on your back. Probably 120-pound packs. But I actually met the guy. He worked at Sportsman's Warehouse. And he was in my department and he worked a different like set of shifts than I did. And just so happened that one day we were working the same shift. I met him. His name is Mike Schiatti, really great guy. And like we got to talking. He told me what he was doing and like all this stuff. And he was like, yeah, I'm just working here in the off season. And then on season I'm at, I'm guiding and all that. And like the first day I met him, he was like, want to pack meat for me? And I was like, sure. Like I'll go on a moose hunt with you and like put me to work. I don't care. So worked out all the logistics and ended up flying out for the month of September. And packing meat was like super fun. Like honestly, super fun. Like so there was 3 spike camps. I was in the main camp, and then there's 2 other spike camps. And the way we had it was, if somebody shot a moose in the other camps, the meat packers would move to there, and then like theoretically we'd all like kind of like chain gang that meat back to the spike camp that they were at. I'll be completely honest, and this is nothing against the guides or the hunters or anything. It was just like kind of bad circumstances with winds and rain. I'm upset that I didn't get to pack more meat. We hit 1 bull, and luckily that was in my main camp where I was at. And like I was super rooting for the other guys in the other 2 camps, but again, just circumstances didn't line up, and like they had shots, but it was like too dark, and like safety and like ethically, passed up on some shots. Then there was some like squeakers that might have been 48, might have been 52, but like you run that line of like you could ruin a whole operation, right? But probably one of the hardest things about it is like carrying 100 and whatever pounds or 100 pounds, whatever the pack is, like cool. That's its own set of problems, but walking over tundra, dude, people don't understand how like hilly tundra is, or like, all the hummocks and hollows and tussocks that are in tundra. But then also like not only is it like super uneven ground, you're walking on a mattress, right? Every footstep is either going to sink more than the other or not sink at all or rebound like harder. So it's just over that uneven ground.
Yeah.
That like walking on tundra, and like I'd walked on some tundra before, but like walking on that distinct tundra and like carrying that much more weight on me just made it that much more difficult and kind of like woke me up to my senses of like, like this isn't easy. So like I have unbelievable respect for people who do it year in and year out.
Yeah.
And I was putting some serious thought into doing it again. And not that I didn't like it, it's just that the job that I got, I'm running now from May until November. So I logistically can't, right? But if that opportunity arises again, like I'm definitely going to put some serious thought into it. It was a super fun experience.
Awesome.
Yeah. And again, like, you're walking through with some like bloody, like stinky meat, right? Well, not stinky, but like aerated meat through bear country. So you're like, at any turn down the trail, something could come at you. But I mean, like we were safe and we knew the area, but I mean, yeah, I always had a 10 mil on my hip for sure. And then the other meat packer, he had a 12 gauge on him, like every single, like you don't get up and leave your tent without something on your hip.
Yeah.
So
Did you like in the area? Did you have wolves or anything up there?
yeah, there was coyote, wolves, martins, wolverines, all that stuff.
Crazy.
I didn't see any wolves, but one of the first nights, one of the adjacent camps, they had some wolves roll through, and they actually had a wolf kill, like there was a wolf kill like a quarter mile from their camp. It was like remarkably close. Yeah, so they heard that all night long, was like they heard something die, and then they just heard all the wolves going hard on it. And then obviously they saw the ravens the following days and all that stuff. But yeah, there was definitely wolves, and all the hunters. There was tags in the camps where if they saw a wolf and they wanted to take it, there was like it was a moose bear combo hunt with the opportunistic wolf, right?
Yeah.
Like they could get a moose and then they could get a grizzly bear, and then if they saw any coyotes or anything they wanted, they could just pop one off.
Yeah. I have one story because it kind of brought it to mind, but we went elk hunting in Idaho, and our campground was across from a sheep farm. And at night you get ready, you go to bed, you eat dinner, and then by the time you're sitting around the campfire getting ready for bed, you'd hear these coyotes just start popping off, like just like packs their little chuckles and howls and stuff. And then they would go in and you just hear the sheep like just start screaming, and they would they were tearing these sheep apart. And then what they didn't know is they had guys out there that would dress in like all white in the flock. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, you hear, ooh, they're coming in, and you hear sheep getting mauled, and then you hear boom, 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 and it's just like they're running off, and you're like, holy shit, But it made me think of that story, because it's just like predators are a different thing, something we don't consider, but they're out there to get their meal too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's everybody's got to eat, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I don't know why I thought of that. You brought it to my mind.
I'd never heard that story, Keaton. That's a good
I know. I just thought about that. I was like, oh man, they'll love this one.
Yeah, I mean, like I've heard of people, and like back east too, like people like setting up at night with like thermal scopes and like popping coyotes under thermal scopes, but like I've never heard of somebody like wearing white and like blending in with a pack of sheep or a herd of sheep.
I've never seen it, but like we go into town to like you drive like 30
Yeah,
minutes, and I'd be like, I asked my uncle, I was like, why are all those people out in the middle of the sheets, or in the middle of the sheep? It's almost completely dark outside, and there's like 5, 6, 7, 8 guys out in the middle, and they're there at night. And he's like, they're there, they got their dogs, but they're out there trying to protect the herd of sheep from getting eaten by coyotes. So,
That's wild.
yeah, I had never seen it before, and I didn't know, and if someone has more facts on it that listens to this or can like chime in, I would love to like know more about it, because that's like my observation of it.
So. That's wild.
Yeah. Imagine being one of those guys. Like, that's got to be you got to be puckering a little bit,
Oh yeah.
Well, you're
yeah,
in
exactly.
the middle of their food source, and you got like coyotes like running around you. I'd be like, holy shit.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's wild. Well, so were you successful in that elk hunt?
Oh no.
Right.
I think we set up our camp a little too close. It was like we got like private access.
Okay.
There was like a big hill that we had access to, and we stayed at the base of it, and we thought we were far enough away, but like we were running generators to cook and stuff.
Oh, yep.
And I think it pushed the elk out of there, and at the end we were like, we should have probably stayed over here a little more, or like got away. And then what we also didn't realize is we got up, we went from the base and hiked all the way up into the hills, and then next thing we know, we have these side-by-sides just rolling around out there, and we're like, fuck, because it was like 50 acres of private land that the elk would roll in on. And then it was like 350 of like BLM land, or acres of that. So you had 400 acres to your we thought to ourselves, because no one could access it, but ended up you could access it.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. Yeah, we didn't have to worry about people rolling in on us where we were at.
Well, I would hope not.
Yeah.
Guy rolls up in his Honda. He's like, "What's up, guys? How you doing?" Oh man, I got one more story, and then we'll keep on moving. But there's this area we hunt in Washington, and we're driving around one day, and it's like log roads, like just nasty. It's rain. It's like kind of rutted. There's some big drops in it, and we usually drive our trucks up around it. And so it's like modern deer season, and we're coming around the corner, and we're like 13 miles deep into this logging road, and this guy is on a moped coming up the logging road. And there's a cabin out there that he like was going to visit his friend from the town, rode his moped. I guess that was his only way up. But I was like, how bad that would suck if you're with your moped like 10 miles deep and you get a flat tire, and you're out there. Oh man, people are crazy. The shit you see in the woods.
Yeah. Well, kind of getting back onto
sorry.
No, you're
sorry.
Like I said, this is real, man. This is fun.
Yeah.
But kind of getting on some of the other stuff we had about your fishing. I know, following you on Instagram, that you fish year round, right? Like you're fishing right now. And
I'm going down tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going down tomorrow.
What is that like? Like what a couple of questions. Like, what is it like to fish in the winter? But like, what drives you? Like, what makes you want, like, hey dude, I'm going to drive like 2 hours south, and I'm going to freaking snowshoe across this frozen lake till I find open water. Like what drives you?
I mean, I guess it's like multi-tiered, right? There's always the fish, right? I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna go fishing for not the fish, right? Like there's always the fish. There's always like, the tug is the drug, the live waist deep, all that stuff, right? But then there's the nature aspect of it, right? Like and hunting and being into archery and all that too, and like bow hunting, like same thing. Getting out on the river, getting out in the woods or on a tree stand and watching the world wake up around you is one of the most surreal things you can ever do. Like,
yeah.
And like, I challenge anybody who's listening who hasn't done this before or who hasn't ever done it. Wake up one morning, if sun rises at 6 o'clock, wake up at 4:30, go out into the middle of the woods at 5, right? Go out and pitch black. So you can't see anything. So nothing can see you, and watch the world wake up. Hear the birds start chirping, watch the squirrels start running around, watch the fish start surfacing as they start feeding for their day. that aspect alone, amazing. I love that. And then like the experience, like, I was watching a YouTube video of somebody, I don't know who it was, and the tagline they kept saying the entire time was "fish the experience," right? So it's like, yeah, there's fish is always going to be, on your brain while you're fishing, but fish to be there, fish to be in the moment, and like there's a couple things that like my buddies and I have wanted to try to do is like we want to push a drift boat across Keelak Lake and dump it into the middle and drift the middle. Not for the Instagram posts, not for the likes, not to get the clout of fishing, right? But to do it because like, theoretically that's less pressure, as well as like that's just a sick experience, right? Like, oh hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I watched movies. Oh, I pushed a drift boat across a lake to go fishing. Like I'm not doing it for your like acknowledgement. I'm not doing it for your credit. Like I'm doing it because like that's a sick experience, right? Like people have a bucket list of things they want to do. My bucket list is like doing that and just like being out there and like catching a fish. I really want to get, and this is something I've been trying to do over the past couple of years, but haven't like really fully put my time into it. I want to catch a trout in every month of the year. I know a lot of people can do it. I know a lot of people who have done it. I would love to catch a trout every month of the year. I think that's just cool. And I know people have broken it down and they're like, oh, I caught a fish on a dry fly every month of the year. And then I caught a fish on a streamer and a fish on a nymph every month of the year. I don't care about that yet. I just want to knock off a trout every month of the year. I think that'd be super cool. But yeah, like I put 2 hours of driving in to go down to the Kenai. Like I'm going on tomorrow. It's going to be, tomorrow will be a nicer day, but like I've gone down and I fished and it was a high of -1 degrees. And why am I doing that? I'm doing it because I went down with buddies and I'm spending a day with buddies. I'm spending a day on water, spending a day without social media. I'm spending a day, unplugged and just like with myself and my thoughts and my buddies and like in that experience. And I think that's super fun. And I think that's something that like also drives me is like, when I fish, like I'm not on social media. Like I'm not like in the daily, like, mindset of life of like, oh, like, gotta work 4 hours, take a half-hour lunch and then work 4 more hours. Like I'm not in that mindset. I'm like fish. I get to the river, I fish, I pack up at the end of the day and I'm like, I haven't eaten all day. Right. Like, I haven't checked Facebook. I haven't checked Instagram. Oh, I have 4 missed calls. Like, yeah. I'm in it to get away. But as far as like, how does it differ from like season to season? It's like, breaking ice off guides, like it sucks, but like, that's part of the experience. And like, it might suck, but like, it's also kind of cool. Like, you're fishing against the odds, right? Like, not only am I fishing against the odds of like tricking a fish into biting me or biting the fly, like I'm fishing against the odds of like, I shouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. But with that comes its consequences. Your rods are more brittle in the cold, for sure. That ice buildup on your rods, more brittle. Like your line will crack and snap easier. I blew up a Claymore. I got this 13.5-foot Redington Claymore in November, and I started spay fishing, and I was having a great time with it. I started tying a lot of like swing bugs and swing flies, and I blew it up. I blew it up because it was too cold, and I barely hit it, and it just blew up. Unfortunately, but like that's part of it. Breaking rods is like, if you're a fisherman and you say you've never broken a rod, you're lying. Like you're either lying to me or you're not fishing hard enough. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know. As you said earlier, I'm a trout bum. Like I'm a river rat. Call me whatever you want. So
heck yeah. That's awesome.
Going back on that, like on the, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's going to, if you fish hard and you're like out in the sun all day and you like come back to eat something after you're done fishing, the mixtures of like food creations you come up with that just hit different. The standard is just above par. I just
absolutely. Yeah, like what I've been making. So and like with that, you also get into like your own little traditions, own little habits, right? Like when I go down and fish the Kenai, I'm coming back, unpaid plug. I stop at Wildman's, grab myself a cheddar jalapeno corn dog every single time. Cheddar jalapeno corn dog and a bag of Funyuns. That's my trip back. Yeah, and that, and like also it's economical because you're not nourishing yourself enough during the day, and then when you go back and you crack a beer, it takes far less liquor to get you feeling good after not eating all day on the river. Yeah. So
I just want to put in something so our listeners, we're not telling you to go starve yourself all day.
Yeah.
I still snack when I'm out there, but I'm saying like when you're out there and you just like sometimes the fishing's so good you just forget to eat.
Yeah,
you're like
you're in the zone, right?
Yeah, so that after meal just it hits differently. Yeah. I recommend it. Just
yeah. You're grabbing for anything. You're like, oh, there's an old bag of like trail mix in my backseat. Let's give that a go.
What? I got a tortilla and I got some like tuna and some ketchup. Fuck it, let's go.
Yep. I had a big like plastic like storage container, and I kept it in my back seat because I was driving back and forth from Willow every day, and I think it was stacked full of snacks, and I'd be driving on the freeway just like reaching back. I'm like, oh, what can I grab? Well, what is this? And I pull it out, and I just snacking on it all the way home.
Yeah.
I think my favorite let's give our favorite creations. Mine is we would get these chicken breasts, and you do like kind of make them spicy, and you cut them up, and then you put in like a quesadilla, and you dip it in Chick-fil-A sauce from Chick-fil-A. It hits differently. I recommend it. Get Amazon yourself some Chick-fil-A because I know you Alaska people don't got one, but it's so good.
Hey, can we DoorDash that from like Washington? Like,
I'll just give me your address after this. I'll go to the store for you and I'll send it to you.
Oh, wicked. All right. As far as like wildest creation food wise for me, it's like, I don't think I'm necessarily creating anything like out of the ordinary. Yeah. Like I'm not combining anything to like eat it. I'm just like creating like a trash pit in my stomach. More so, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, Funyuns. Don't like. I can support that company by myself. Funyuns and gummy lifesavers, like those two hit different. And then any sort of gas station like sandwich wrapped in tinfoil underneath a heat lamp, doesn't matter what it is. One of those, and then an Arctic Blitz Gatorade. If you haven't had specifically Arctic Blitz, you got it. You got to try it.
I'm on that train, Mitchell.
There you go.
Heck yeah.
What's yours? Let's hear it. I know you got one.
I'm not gonna lie here, guys. I have to eat all day. I don't know. I'm sure Keaton knows, but I heck a shit ton of snacks wherever I go. I'm guiding, dude. I'm eating like constantly. But for lunches, I hate making sandwiches, right? I can't stand taking like 3 minutes to make a good sandwich. So I take all of my sandwich pieces, and at lunch, I'll have like a bag of like meat and a bag of cheese and like a bag of crackers. And I put like 4 slices of ham or roast beef and like 2 slices of cheese. And then I lay all my crackers in it and I roll it up. And that's like my lunch every day.
I love it.
So your tortilla is meat.
Yep, I have like a meat tortilla with the cheese and the and I do it so much in the guide season. I did that today at work for lunch during our like lunch. Yep. And so I'm just sitting there, everybody's like eating out of their bowls, and I like take out my ham and my cheese and I put some pretzels in there and I roll it up, and I'm just eating my ham and cheese tortilla at work.
It's like an absolute caveman over there just eating a log of meat.
Yeah, exactly. That's like my favorite like meal on the river, because when I'm guiding, I'm like cooking for clients, I'm like, all right, boom, like just like eat it all in one go and then you're done.
That's I can't pass it up. extra toasty Cheez-Its. Nothing else. So I should say it's different when I go like with friends or if I go with my girlfriend, right? Like if I go with my girlfriend, we're eating proper, well, or more proper, right? We're making a sandwich before the day or PB&J, whatever. But like when I'm by myself, like nothing matters. I'm a trash can. Like,
yeah. Cheez-Its and barbecue sauce. Try it. I'm telling you, do it. Weird sounding. I might just be a weirdo. And
No, we already knew that, Keaton.
Well, yeah, we already knew that.
Bold. All right.
I also want to go back and just put the statement there that I will call Kyle for a 5-minute conversation, and by the end of the conversation, he'll have like 8 packaroons in his like down the hatch, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, and he's like munching. He's like, I can't understand him. You know, he's up in Alaska, already kind of rough service, and he's like, yeah. So anyway, on the podcast today, and I'm like, what are you saying? You swallowed the packaroons, Kyle.
Oh, I eat packaroons like a madman. Like
I will say those packaroons are pretty phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, even if our podcast was not
like
an affiliate with us, I would still eat the packaroons. They're
absolutely
a great treat.
Yeah.
No, dude, yeah, they're pretty good.
Yes, sir.
If you're interested in these packaroons, use the Young Guide 15 at checkout.
Exactly. Go to the website, Young Guides 15. Save yourself.
Young Guides 15. Yep. The Young Guides.
Or stop by Sportsman. Sportsman has them too.
Yep, yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. Stop by Sportsman, say hi.
For sure. Man, this has been Go ahead, Keaton.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're talking about some good stuff. Let's start rolling into these. I got a few questions for you, and I think Kyle, and let's just get this thing out the door because it's getting later up here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. This has been a great podcast, Mitch. This has been super fun. Like this is just like the conversations Keaton and I have, and it's just like having another buddy on the podcast. We're just talking, and man, this is super fun. This is gonna be a good episode because this is like I said, this is the kind of stuff people like to hear. They like to hear the informative stuff. They like to hear about you, but also like our meal creations. Like this has just been super fun. So we really appreciate having you on for sure.
Yeah, no, it's been a blast. Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Well, Keaton, you want to lead us into our first set of rapid fire questions here?
Yeah, this is our favorite portion of our podcast because we get to throw questions at you that you might know or might not know, depending if you listen to previous podcasts. Sometimes we can catch people off guard, but here we go.
Yeah.
What is your favorite fish to fish for?
Oof. Dollies. I love a good dolly.
Yep.
Super fun. Reminds me of home, like with like a brook trout. Like dollies and rainbows in close succession or succession, I guess.
Yeah. If you haven't caught a dolly, catch a dolly.
Yeah.
Super aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw this in here. We were gonna this isn't usually our rapid fire, but where do you see yourself like 5 years from now, Mitch? Like, what do you see yourself doing? Are you gonna be in Alaska? Are you gonna be doing more stuff with like Fish and Game or the wildlife or the Fish and Wildlife Service? Like where do you see yourself?
Yeah, I mean, whether I'm in Alaska or not, I'm gonna be doing some sort of work with a State Department of Fisheries and Wildlife or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. My background has spanned everything from working with fish to insects to trapping bears out in Maine for like population and demographic studies, birds and pica and, anything outdoors. Like I cannot be behind a desk in a cubicle. So I mean, where do I see myself? Outside. Working for doing some sort of like meaningful wildlife work, right? I guess that's the best way to put it. I'd love to work for a state or the feds. Whether that works out, there's a lot of coveted positions that are held under close watch by a lot of other people. So if I can get my foot in the door and get working for one of them, that'd be awesome. But if not, I'm just gonna keep trying. I mean, seasonal gigs are great. Don't get me wrong, but a full-time gig would be that much nicer.
Yeah.
Awesome. What is your dream destination to go fly fishing at?
Oh, I kind of had this conversation with my buddies the other day. Are we talking because fly fishing can be broken up into fresh and salt water. What are we talking?
Do one of each. Where's your dream fresh? Where's your dream salt?
Dream fresh, probably pretty standard, just like everybody else, is gonna be like Patagonia. Patagonia for like rainbows and brooks and browns. Either that or Iceland for like the glacier browns. Those things are wild. And then saltwater wise, I really don't have as much drive for saltwater as I do freshwater. That's probably also because I haven't fished saltwater as much. But Baja California, and I'm going for roosters all day. Rooster fish permit, and like a large barracuda. Those are my top 3 saltwaters, closely followed by like a bonefish.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Baja for roosters all day.
I have to say I respect the location too. It's kind of different than like most people. Everyone's like trying to go to those like main staple, Seychelles, Cuba, kind of down there, and you're like, let's go United States, baby. We're going to catch a rooster here. So
yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Baja California is in Mexico, Keaton.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're below the border at that point.
Is it?
Yeah.
In Baja California?
Yeah, it's like
I didn't know
California, and then it's like Mexico, and then Baja California.
Oh, I didn't know it was I learned something new today. I thought it was like Baja California.
Viva la Mexico. Yeah.
Damn. Well, Kyle, edit that so I don't look like an idiot.
No, you gotta keep that in. You gotta keep that one in.
I actually didn't know that. Like,
yeah,
100%.
It's so if you look at like a map, right? There's like the US, and then there's the Mexico comes off, and then there's a little sliver to like on the west side of Mexico, like right up underneath California. That's Baja California. But it is below the border, and it is Mexico.
Is it considered still like California, or is it?
No, it's straight up a different country. Straight up Mexico.
What? The more you learn every day. I never knew that.
A Renton school district there for you.
Damn. They failed me.
That's too
oh man,
Keaton,
I'm so sorry.
You're entertaining. All right. What's your favorite?
Wait, so are you telling me Narnia's not real?
Wait, what was that?
I said you're telling me Narnia's not real too?
Oh, well, if you go through the wardrobe, you're fine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Baja California is right next to Narnia too.
Right?
Yeah.
It's which lane you drive down.
Cool. All right. We'll keep moving. Sorry.
Mitch, what's your favorite meal and drink for when you're going fishing?
Favorite meal and drink. Driving to a spot, I'm stopping at McDonald's and I'm grabbing sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddle, 2 hash browns. Driving from the river, as we discussed, Funyuns, Cheez-Its, and gummy lifesavers.
Nice.
Drink wise, I'm picking up a Gatorade or like a vanilla cherry Bang. Unfortunately, I gotta ride that Bang train.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, I got one for you. You're rolling out to go fishing. You just hopped in your car. You open Spotify. What is your go-to music or podcast?
Oh, damn. Okay. So Guilty Pleasures playlist on Spotify, right?
Okay.
It's like either that or it's like 2000 Summers Hits. Those two is like it's like high school dance hits, right?
Okay.
So it's like 50 Cent, Nelly, like Soldier Boy, like all those just like good hype songs, right?
Yeah.
But like Guilty Pleasures, like you throw in like Africa by Toto, you throw in like Mbop by Hanson, you throw Wannabe by the Spice Girls, you throw all that in there, right? So it's like you're cruising. It's like it's a road trip playlist. Like
Love it.
hop on Spotify, play those. Shameless plug, play those. They're great.
I just looked it up. I'm gonna play it at work tomorrow. We listen to music while we're cooking, so I'm gonna throw that up on the kitchen tomorrow morning.
Like it is impossible to not have people jam out during it. Like I used to play it. Like I would help wash dishes at a restaurant back in Maine, and like one day they're like, "All right, Mitch, you get the aux cord for the day," and I was like, "Stand by." I played it, and everybody in the beginning, like, dude, we had the cooks like jamming out to like Africa, or like Africa by Toto, and then like Wannabe by the Spice Girls came on. Like the like waitresses were coming in. They're like, "What is this?" Like hard switch from like rap and metal in the kitchen to like good hits, and like people were having a time. It was fun. Yeah.
Oh man, I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, you're headed out the door. Well, tomorrow you're headed out the door, right? You're gonna go down. You're gonna fish. What's the first thing you're gonna grab that has to go in the car with you?
First thing I'm grabbing, like, so I do this thing where I just carabine everything together so I can't forget it. So in one foul swoop, I'm grabbing like my tackle bag with waders and my boots in it, my rod, and I recently switched to like a fanny pack, like from Fish Pond instead of like a big dry bag. So I'm grabbing all of that. And then like probably like a extra jacket, I guess. I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah. Like I like stagger everything the night before so that I can't forget anything in the morning. So I'm not like running around. But yeah, probably that.
Nice.
Sorry, kind of a lame answer, but
No, that's not lame at all. That's awesome. I that's a good idea. Just everything has to be connected. That way it can't be left behind.
No.
Exactly.
What's something you wish you knew when you first started fishing? One thing.
It's not a competition. I guess, yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I was pretty humbled when I was fishing in Maine with a friend, and she kind of like started like shutting away from me because like I guess the aura I would bring to fishing was too competitive. I grew up in a family of like 3 boys, so everything was like competitive naturally. And then like I was always doing sports and like competing. And like I'd bring that to the river, and I didn't let that I let it affect the friendly, happy-go-lucky vibe of a river, right? So like I'd be like, "Oh well, I caught 8 fish today. Like how many did you catch?" "Oh yeah, like yeah, you only caught 4," kind of deal. Like I wasn't like a jackass about it, but like I definitely let it ruin some good times, right? Like I let it take precedent over kind of just like, you're fishing to have fun. You're fishing to let go of everything. Like I let it take over that. And I'm very, very conscious to this day about not letting that happen, about not being like, "Oh, but mine was a 24-inch fish and yours was only 22. Like I don't rub it in people's face as much. And like, yeah, there's friendly banter, like when the time is right, but like, I don't let it ruin the vibe and the feel of the day as much, So
yeah,
For sure.
Yeah. It's like if I go with my friends and like, let's say I catch 3 fish, but they catch 5 fish, like we caught 8 fish. Like I'm stoked for us, right? Like my buddy, another kid who just started working at Sportsman's, he just moved to Alaska. He had never caught a rainbow in Alaska. We went fishing. I didn't touch a rainbow all day long. He landed a rainbow. And I think I was more stoked for him catching a fish than if I would have caught a fish. And like we're all in it to win it. We're all in it for fun. So yeah. I wish I had got the memo to lose that competitive aspect when it came to a hobby that I'm in for fun.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Mitch, we've had a great conversation with you, and we've had a lot of fun tonight. Learn more about you, and I even learned some things about Keaton, and Keaton learned some things about geography. So, and I know there's a lot of stuff that, there's a lot of stuff we could still touch on, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you and I'll probably get out and do some fishing. I know Keaton's going to try to come up. All three of us try to head out, and we'll try to record another podcast because I know there's a lot of stuff that I wish we covered that we did. But in that aspect, is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think we should know about you or about your fishing obsession?
Not really. I don't think so. To everybody out there, I guess, if you see a truck with the license plate fly fish roll by you, say hi. If you stop on the river, especially in the winter, and you see somebody with like a bright yellow beanie on, fishing when they probably shouldn't be because it's too cold, stop and say hi. I'm a pretty easygoing guy when it comes to the river. If anybody wants to approach me and say hi or fish with me or whatever like that, do it. I'll fish with just about anybody, and I'll help just about anybody catch a fish too. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to, meet new people this year on the river. I'm excited to like meet you, Keaton, and fish with you more, Kyle. And, yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to fish, I guess. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Heck yeah. All right, Keaton. We got one final question.
Oh, do you want me to ask it?
Yeah, it's all you.
All right. I just added this one because it made me think of it.
I was talking about the other one, but yeah, ask that one.
Wait, I guess two questions.
No, we're doing one. We're doing this one. Okay. End your pod. We're gonna end the podcast with your favorite fishing story. It can be funny, it can be serious, it can be like this is like a bonding moment,
or it can be embarrassing.
Or embarrassing, yeah.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. All right. I mean, you said that, and the one story came to mind first and foremost. So I guess that's the most memorable because that's the one that came first, right? Great Lakes tribs. I was fishing. I mean, I guess it's a Great Lakes trib. I was fishing the Salmon River in Pulaski. I had gone home for Christmas break, and I told my parents, I was like, I'm going up for 2 nights to Pulaski by myself. Went up there. I did the research, and drove up to Pulaski. Got in there. I fished. So I fished the DSR, the Douglas and Salmon Run. It's a pay to fish section of the river. That's kind of more, that's kind of more protected. And I know everybody has their own thing about, paying to fish and all that stuff, but whatever. It was happily donated to the cause of keeping a river clean and to promoting the fishery. I fished that night, didn't touch into anything. And I was rolling onto the river, and I met a kid who reminded me a lot of myself and also inspired me to be more like him at the same time. Rolled off the river, or I was rolling onto the river, he was rolling off, and I was like, hey, like, do you touch anything? What were they hitting? Classic, on the river fishing questions or like banter, right? And he was like, yeah, like use this, and this. And then I showed him my box, what I had, and I was like, because I didn't have exactly what he was saying. So he was like, here, take this fly. He gave me a fly, and I was using it. He was like, I'm rolling out, but like, here's my number, get a hold of me tomorrow. We'll go fishing together. Cause like I was by myself, he was by himself. Fished that night. And then he actually showed up back on the river. He was like, yeah, I decided not to go home, whatever. So we fished that night, became friends. And we're like, all right, yeah, let's meet up tomorrow on the river. Met up that morning. And we fished together all day long. I ended up touching into my first steelhead. And it took all day for us to touch into a steelhead. And I hooked this thing. I'm on an 8-weight, and it takes off into the river, and I'm fighting it. And he's there with me. He grabs the net, and he's going down to net it. And it's holding like hard mid current. I I switch angles on it and I bring it closer to shore, and it's still holding like probably like 10 feet off the, the island that we were on. And he's at the end of the island. He's probably 45 feet down from me, 45 feet down from me. And I have like, I'm an 8-pound test. So I have this thing pinned and I can't move it any further. And fully torqued. And this kid, he's moving up to like get closer to net it. And as he's moving closer, the line snaps and the whole thing comes unbuckled. And I'm like, great, I just lost my first chance at a steelhead. I'm super bummed. And like all this is happening in like mere seconds, right? Like you know the feeling of losing a fish and like you instantly like everything drains from you and you're like, oh shit. This kid, don't know how he did it. He took my net and he's standing. And I wish the listeners could see this. He's standing in the river and he just like, he takes the net and shoots it in between his legs and just like aims for the best. And this fish just like turns lazily in the current and like goes down in between his legs right into the net.
Why?
Like could not make this up. And then I'm like, fuck, I'm pissed. And then he comes up from being like hunched way over with this fish in this net and like net way too small. And this thing's just flopping. And like in that split second, I go from like the lowest point to like the absolute highest point that I could ever be. And we're both geeking out. We're like having a fucking time of it. And we're yelling and hooting and hollering. And like, that was my first steelhead, and it was like a very respectable steelhead. And yeah, it was just like just meeting him on the river and then like becoming like best of buddies within like, a day of fishing. And like I still keep in contact with him and like we still talk about like, oh, it'd be dope to like meet up and go fishing again and all that. And then like later on that day, it was kind of funny too. It was like we were walking up river and we ran into a group of guys, and this kid goes, "You're Mitch Paisker, right?" And I was like, he was like, "I follow you on Instagram." And so like I met 4 friends on the river who like I never knew before that day. And like just kind of one of the stories of like, not only did like fishing bring us together, but like not only did fishing like give me one of the best memories of like catching a nice big steelhead, but also like meeting 4 guys who like I'd never met before. And like we all I followed some of them on Instagram. They followed some of me, but we never met in person. But we're 13 hours away from Maine. We meet on this river. We become great friends. We go to dinner. We have beers and like just became friends with these people after, this fish brought us together. And like that's probably one of the most memorable stories that I have of fishing. So
that's a great story.
Yeah. So
sweet.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I hope more memories like that are made for, myself and for you guys and like for, everybody else on the river. I know Kyle and Keaton, you're saying that you're guiding this summer, and like, I only wish you guys the best on like creating those memories for people. And like, I'm sure that you'll get people who have never fished before, or like who have never fly fished before, who have never done a certain type of fishing before. And like, I only wish you guys the best on like putting people on their first memory and like creating those memories that are going to like last with them forever. Cause like, that's what it's all about really,
Yeah,
for sure.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We appreciate you coming on, Mitch. It's been a good long one. And like I said, we've enjoyed it, but I feel like we just scratched the surface. We're going to have to come back, but no, we appreciate you taking the time, and awesome. Just wish you the best of luck. Good luck tomorrow and safe travels. You'll have to let us know how you do, and so we can maybe throw some pictures up of your trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep you guys posted, and yeah, for sure. If you guys ever want me again, like I'd love to do it again. So
yeah, cool. Well, this was another episode of the Young Guides podcast. We just want to thank you for taking the time and listening to our podcast. Make sure to give us a follow on Instagram, the Young Guides podcast. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we just started a new YouTube channel. So if you don't mind going over there, hitting the subscribe button, We're going to try to put some informational videos up, how to do certain rigs. Kyle just posted a video about what was in Kyle's waders after 5 months of not guiding. He just was like, let's just pull this out. We're going to make a video. And then he does some good descriptions of stuff. So make sure to check that out. All our podcasts are also on YouTube. Also, if you want to check out, you want to learn a little bit about Mitch or some of our previous people on our podcast, go to our website, theyoungguidespodcast.com, and you can learn about me and Kyle. You can learn about the people that have been on our podcast, and you can listen to our podcast there as well. We are working on hopefully bringing you a learning platform there too. So me and Kyle are, we work our day jobs, and then we grind at night trying to give you guys good content, bring in awesome people on like Mitch. And we hope, we appreciate it. And if you can leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and just let us know how we're doing. We're not asking for 5-star reviews. We want to know if there's things we can do better, but we do appreciate the 5-star reviews and the comments you guys have been leaving us. So for just starting this podcast, me and Kyle, we talk about it every day. We're so appreciative of the fan base that we do have, and we hope to see it grow. And if you can share our posts and our podcast, we would love that. So Kyle, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, I think you got it good. Thank you again, Mitch, for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Young Guides podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.